To the cloud. All right. We are recording. Let me, hold on. Let me send out a notice real quick.
Just need a picture.
All right. Well. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We've got our seniors, we've got our panel, we've got the IT department, and we've got other visitors. Justin, good to see you. Oh, side comment, Gary. So have you ever had to do any work in Python, before you retired?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I didn't either. And then and I played around with it, hated it. Then the company bought our company, and they were a Python shop. So I had to learn it, and I hated it because I was having to work, it was a bittersweet. There were great things about the experience too. But when I left, and then I went to do a project, kind of a data scraping project, and I reached for Python, and now I'm like a complete convert. I'm a Pythonista now. So anyway, so that's what we teach at the university. I figure the two most popular languages are Python and JavaScript right now. So we try to cover both of those. All right, so I don't know where I'm trying to fill in for Kuna, but we'll see what happens. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank our panel. I'm going to give a quick introduction. Well, I'll just do a quick introduction, and you guys everyone will get to know our panelists as they ask questions. First, we have, I'll just start on my screen. I have Gary, Stephen, and John Spencer along the top. So I'll start with Gary. Gary and I worked together at Edwards Life Sciences, which is a biotech firm. And this was about 15 years ago. And at the time, a lot of business intelligence was done with Microsoft had a technology where they had these cubes, they would call them. And instead of a regular relational database, you would create what's called a star schema or a snowflake, and you'd store data that way. And then to query the data, instead of using SQL, there was a language called MDX. And Gary was the foremost expert in MDX in Orange County, maybe all of Southern California, for the couple of years that we did that. And Gary told me that having, under his mentorship, I was probably number 2 or number 3 in MDX. So it was a language that never really caught on. And then all of a sudden, in the mid 2010s, the teens, business intelligence blew up so much that it became automated, that no one really needs to write MDX queries anymore, right, Gary? There'd be like no use for it. Anyway, I learned a lot from Gary. He is one of those people who has incredible technical skills, but an incredible aptitude for understanding a business. Like I got there at Edwards before he did. So I had a few months on him, and within a couple months, I feel like he understood all about how Edwards Life Sciences, how they made money, what they did, what we were doing specifically. And I was still just kind of like, tell me what to do, point me in the right direction and let me go. So anyway, I've always admired Gary, his big business acumen and his skills. And he worked really hard, very, very, very many hours, very many clients, and then decided he had enough money, he and his wife, and now they're retired. Like, were you in your 40s, maybe late 30s? When did you decide you were done?
48.
48. All right. So anyway, so if you want to go that route, there's Gary for you. Okay, next we have Stephen. I know Stephen through Gary. Stephen and Gary had a company that they had together, or you partnered together with your separate company, something like that, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah. And so Gary connected me with Stephen, and Stephen and I have been like accountability partners kind of thing for, sheesh, how long now? Like 3 years, 4?
Yeah, I mean, regular meetings for over a year now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's amazing. It goes fast.
Yeah, all through the pandemic, right? Because we met before the pandemic. I remember
that's right.
we met at a restaurant out in was it Irvine or
Tustin?
Tustin, yeah. So anyway, we hit it off, and sometimes when you are a lone gun, you're kind of working from home. Maybe you have your own company, but you don't get that social interaction, and you need to interact with other people who have technology skills that complement you, or and that's where Stephen and I are. We are that person that we could share all the nerdy things that we learned in a week. We hop on a call every Friday and we share what we've learned, and so we help keep each other up on technology. Did I miss anything, Stephen?
No, you got it.
Right.
That's it. I also learned a lot of MDX from Gary. So
yeah. All right. Maybe you were number 2 in Orange County and I was number 3. So
I don't know about all that, but I'm happy not to do it anymore too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one of those things that really exercise your brain.
Yeah. They would call it multi-dimensional cubes. And so I have a few of my AI students here. We talk about multiple dimensions also. It's kind of weird stuff. All right, last but not least, John Spencer. He and I, so about 6 years ago, my brother-in-law and I, we started a little company. We brought on another partner that was STR Helper. I know you guys, I talk about that all the time. We help cities with their quote Airbnb problem. And we were kind of just bumbling along, getting a client here and there, doing our best. And John Spencer found us, and he had a similar idea of software, but he kind of figured he was already a few months behind us. So if you can't, and he wasn't sure if he could beat us in time or that kind of thing. So if you can't beat him, join him. He came in and invested money in our company, which allowed me to quit my job and allowed Bob, my partner, to quit his job and work full time at it. And we also discovered among the three of us, we really didn't know how to run a company or be a CEO. And John had been a CEO and owner of companies many, many times. And so we elected him CEO, and I don't think he had planned to put that much work into this company. I think maybe he wanted it to be a passive investment, but in a matter of 18 months, he took us from $80,000 in annual recurring revenue to 1.3 million. So he knows how to run a company. He's done it a bunch of times. He is technical. He has, your undergrad was in computer science, right, John? Or something?
Actually wasn't. I'm more like you. I'm sort of a self-taught programmer.
Gotcha. And then he went back and got a MBA, but he has the technical know-how. But he is, I don't know, he's a lot of things. He's a people person. He's a great, even though he wouldn't want to be reduced to this because it is not everything, it is not his core. It's just an outgrowth of who he is, but he's an incredible salesperson. And I think it's because he has the ability to emphasize, and what he is always trying to do is help someone solve a problem. And I think that always came through whenever he would meet with clients and try to find new clients, is that he knew they had a problem even before they did, and he knew what the solution was. And I bring this up, John, because Dallin, at least Dallin, and there might be others, he's a great programmer, but he sees himself maybe as wanting to be like more in the sales engineer role at some point. I kind of described what that was. And so I think maybe when it comes time for him to present and during question and answer, we might pick your brain a little bit more on that, John, if that's anyway. The other thing is you know, the weekly stand-up calls we have with our senior project class, we would have a stand-up meeting every morning for upper management. And so it was the 4 owners. And I looked, it was, for me, I had to get up at 6 in the morning because the call for me was at 6:30. But I looked forward to it because I just love talking with John Spencer. He is this well-rounded, he can converse on any subject. When he's talking to you, he makes you feel like you're the most interesting person in the room. And you can't help but love a person like that. Anyway, so that is the panel I've assembled today. And I am so glad that that you guys have all agreed to this. So, all right, I'll give you my little round of applause. So the way it will work, let me go back to Slack and look at, all right, is each student will have about 15 to 20 minutes in total. And we're not gonna, if like last time, if things start going a little longer because students are benefiting, then we're not gonna arbitrarily stop. But what'll happen is each student will first give a presentation on what they did, or on what they, well, think of yourselves, panel, as investors, and they're trying to pitch you on this idea. So they're going to take you through their pitch deck. And then next, they're going to demo their product for you. And then they'll take questions, questions and answer period. So does that sound good? I did hit record. Yep. Okay. We're recording. Any questions before we start, or any comments?
Nope.
No. All right. So tentatively, we're going to follow the schedule. We're going to have Dallin go first, and then Tyson, and then Alexander. And to give you just before Dallin starts, to give you a little bit, his was a special case. We combined his project with an internship. So if his project seems like a little over the top, like, how did you get all of this done in 4 months with a couple hours a week on it? That just not to diminish what Dallin has done, but just to give you a little background, because you might have questions on, well, why did you do it this way or that way? And his answer might have to be, it wasn't my choice. So just giving a little background on that. All right. If without any further ado, let's present Dallin. And if you want to share your screen, well, I'll take a look at you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, can you guys see that? Oh, no, I don't want that. Cool. All right, can you guys hear me and everything good?
Yep, coming through
Awesome.
great.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, for for those of you guys that do know me, what's up? How's it going? For the to everyone that I am just meeting, that's on the panel, nice to meet you guys. I'm Dallin. For my senior capstone project, like Professor Jacobson said, it was a unique situation with an internship that I had that began at the beginning of the semester, and in discussion with the company. Their company's name is Red List, here in Pleasant Grove, Utah. With discussions with them, they had talked to me about using. So okay, actually, I'll get into that. Okay, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. All right, so Red List is the company's name, and we talked about doing voice navigation for their product. I'll get into their product. I'll get into the kind of industry they're in just a second. But yeah, so for my project, I worked on a voice navigation software program for their application for their clients to use. But Red List specializes in construction management software. I took the initiative to see, how the software has grown and where it's intended to go, based off of global market rates, and it looks like the construction business, obviously construction is growing, so with that the software would need to grow as well with the at the same pace, and the global market for construction management software is growing tremendously, with the expected number to be at about $2.73 billion by the year 2027, which is huge. That's a lot of money in that market. Redlist is a platform that is a cloud-based mobile-ready app that eliminates data gaps between managers, teams, and machines. With the Redlist platform, you get a lot of things with our product. You get field services, you get safety, maintenance, apps for your specified business. They work with a lot of businesses right now. We're kind of in talks with, hospitals and working with helping their management system, but they focus primarily on industrial construction companies, and they provide field services and dispatch, enterprise asset management, managing digital safety forms, OEM warranty and compliance. And a lot of the clients are pretty big clients with what we see over here, these four clients over here on the left, in Bronson Crane, Fenton Rigging and Contracting, and these aren't just Utah-based construction companies. They're companies from all over the country, and there's also companies across the world that use this app as well. But when talking about the issue, and it doesn't just relate to construction management, but it's more of just like, as the world gets into more of an automatic state, I guess, for lack of a better term, the world is going into a lot of automation. We see a lot of businesses implementing like software for many features, but we see that for a lot of tasks as well. But we see that like a common issue is everybody hates putting in, typing, texting, like typing in information and inputting information manually. I mean, we're used to it, but the idea of this problem is we saw that, there's a lot of the workers in the workforce, their hands might be dirty, they might be busy doing managing a lot of tools and equipment that, pulling, I don't know, it's just a hassle, taking off your glove or whatever, pulling out your phone to type in work orders and tasks and updating things to your manager, the boss. So the most common and the issue is having to use manually have to access the features on the app. And so we came up with a solution that we wanted to implement into their application by using voice interaction into the system to help clients efficiently accomplish their daily tasks. So the solution, like I was saying, was to implement the voice implementation, but that voice implementation would create a way in which clients can access the application using their voice, allowing clients to use voice commands to interact with features like asking how many work orders they have to do, listing those work orders based off of importance, starting timers that'll help them with their tasks. And we wanted to get it to where they can use these without even having to pull out the phone. They can just say on their Android device saying, "Hey Google," or "Okay Google, open up this app," and go to voice recognition, automatically opening voice recognition, and I think my Alexa just turned on. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, that threw me off. But basically using everything without having to use your manual with your hand, without you using your hands. And we did this using Android Studio, with which the backend, which was like the speech recognition features of Android, of the Android API. And we used Java, and I used Java and Kotlin. And then on the front end in React, we're using VS Code JavaScript. So that's the project, creating an application or a feature for their app that they can access features within their app using just their voice. So I was instructed to create a video because it's better on Zoom. So I'm going to show you a demonstration of the product. Professor Jacobson, do you want me to just play the video and then talk about it afterwards, or pause the video intermittently?
Is there talking in the video itself?
Yeah, it's just me using voice commands.
Gotcha. Yeah, probably just play the video and then we can talk after.
Okay, perfect.
All right. And if we have a question, we'll ask you to pause it. How's that sound?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Is it coming in clear for you guys? Okay.
You see the video. Yep.
Okay,
Yep, we
cool.
see.
Okay. Hello, Redlist. How many overdue work orders do I have?
You have 0 overdue work orders.
Thank you.
You have 0 work orders per day.
Redlist. List today's work orders.
You have 6 work orders. Your top 5 work orders are fiber cuts, texture, office, 6 training, travel consulting, work on power line, help you access.
Redlist. Start task time.
Timer started.
Redlist. Stop task time.
Your timer went on for 10 seconds.
Thank you. So
Okay, we could
That-
barely hear
Oh,
what
really?
was being said. Yeah.
oh,
So-
interesting.
Yeah. So, or was I alone? Were you guys?
No, it's really, really faint to be able to hear it.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
what? Okay. Hey, Dallin, when you did share my screen, there's a little box that says share sound, share audio or something, or share sound. Did you check that box?
Um,
Do this, unshare your screen,
okay.
stop sharing, and then now try it again. Hit share, and then it should pop up a little
oh,
box.
share sound. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Click that. Let's do
Perfect.
it again.
Okay. Is that okay? Okay, here we go. Oh, whoops. I shared the wrong screen. Okay. 1 second.
I like it. That's a nice.
Thanks. Okay. Share this screen. There we go. Cool. All right, we're good.
Yeah, try it
Okay.
and let's hear. I'll let you know if we can hear it.
Okay. Red list voice feature.
Ah, perfect.
Hello, Red list. How many overdue work orders do I have?
You have 0 overdue work orders.
Thank you. Red list. How many work orders do I have for today?
You have 0 work orders for today.
Thank you. Red list. List today's work orders.
You have 6 work orders. Your top 5 work orders are timer test, get bearing from office, fix crane engine, travel to Salt Lake and work on power line, help team access drainage system.
Red list. Start task timer.
Timer started.
Red list. Stop task timer.
Your timer went on for 10 seconds.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. So
All right, that was
that's my
much
project.
better.
Thanks. There we go. Yeah, so that's my presentation. That's the product that I worked for the last few months on. So
All right. Woo, round of applause. Thank you, Dallin.
thank you.
All right, panel. What do we have for him?
I was wondering, I know this is sort of part of an internship, so I'm not sure how deep you got into this, but it would be interesting to know if you've put any thought into it or have anything you could say off the cuff. But the first thing I thought to myself was, how is the business going to measure this in terms of a value add to their services? Is this tool going to drive adoption, usage? Is it just a feature that the sales folks can put in their presentations when they're trying to sell? Like, what does the business envision this feature sort of adding to their bottom line?
So I didn't find this out. So I didn't find this out until I got into the office, like within the last month, because I've been doing it remote in Virginia, the project remote in Virginia since August. And so when I got into the office, I noticed that they had like this little hat on like this table with like some goggles or whatever. It's like a hard hat for like a construction company. And I was like, what the heck is this? And they kind of talked to me about it. And I didn't know this previously, but they had worked with alongside another company to create like kind of like a Google Glasses type deal where they could access their tasks and their work orders and all these things based off of like their eye movement. And they wanted to implement that, and they said it didn't really work too well. I don't know if they're continuing to work alongside that company for further features with that. But they talked to me about how their app, they basically wanted to, they have a lot of people on the iOS side of the app, and the iOS side of their app gets a lot of attention. And they basically wanted this feature to be a part of their Android app and to basically make it stand out a little more, because more clients they said they heard feedback from some of their clients that even though they use iOS devices in the field, they would prefer to use Android devices based off of their, I guess, the price of Android devices and the cost value of using those devices in the field. And so they basically wanted this to be a thing that is special for the Android device, that they can use to basically promote their system, their product to their clients.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. It'd be interesting to hear to ask them, sort of what if they had divined any numbers in terms of what they thought that would do to their bottom line and how what the ROI to their investment would be.
Mhm. Yeah.
So maybe something to ask them. I'm going to switch over now to technical, sort of more technical approach, which is if you were going to do one thing differently from your tech stack, if you were going to make one change, what would be the biggest change you'd make? Sort of in the project itself, like the thing that impacted your delivery the most.
I feel like I wish I had a little more time to work on the custom intents based from Google Assistant. That's one thing that I wish I could present better. I I did extensive research on working with Google Assistant and setting up custom intents. And I wasn't able to figure that feature out. And so that part of the project, I wish I had, and I wish I could, I would definitely change that because I wish I could have that a part of the presentation. But I was able to, I guess, supplement that with creating a shortcut on the dashboard of the phone. I'm not too happy with that part of the presentation, like presenting just that, because the purpose of it is to say, hey, Google, open up voice feature, opens up voice feature. Instead, it just goes direct, the shortcut just goes directly to the voice feature, and then they could access their features based off of like, it automatically starts the speech recognition, and then you can gather the information from that. So that would be one thing I wish that I would change. I definitely, for sure.
Cool.
Let me say a couple things, a few comments. One, at the technical level, I think what you've done and what you've discovered is really, really important. And I don't know if this is something you conscientiously have done or not, but just be aware of it. That these companies like Google or Microsoft or Salesforce or pick your favorite, they're essentially platforms, right? They're just an amalgamation of services.
Mhm.
And so much value can be derived by leveraging those services into applications, which is what you've done here. As opposed to having to be kind of the grand genius that goes and builds everything from the ground up, which gets very expensive. Oftentimes it's inferior, everything else. Leveraging the services that exist from now trillion-dollar companies is such a valuable lesson. And I think learning that at this stage in your career is really important, that you don't have to, like you were talking about these Google Glasses or whatever these things were, leveraging the services that exist from these very, very well-developed, well-financed companies is a much, much better path. Kenny is acutely aware of this. So as you think in terms of technical strategy, I think it's really important what you've done and what you've discovered here.
Thank you.
Secondly, I think it's really it's really laudable what you've done in terms of going and working for somebody else right now. I have children that are about your age,
Mhm.
and they've sort of gone through the same process. And so many of the young people I meet right now all think they need to rush out and start a company. And some of them will succeed at that and some of them won't. But what you're doing right now, by sort of developing new and innovative products within the context of an existing company, to me is really, sort of letting your ego kind of putting it down and saying, let me learn here.
Mhm.
The game at your age is not to be Mark Zuckerberg, sorry, right?
Right.
You have this unbelievable opportunity to go into an environment and learn and to be kind of an entrepreneur within the context of that environment. And I think there's so many people that want to reject that these days. And I think it's really smart what you're doing, both on the technical side and on the kind of personal development side. And I would
Awesome.
encourage you to particularly if that's your personality, to continue forward with that, because I think it's a really, really good path. And
Thank
I
you.
see it in my own children as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The last thing I thought about, this is not really certainly not pertinent to the product you're building, but my sister-in-law, who lives actually in Roanoke, so right next door to all the Virginia crowd,
Mhm.
is blind. And these voice recognition applications for people with visual impairments, you just have no idea how important and how life-changing they can be.
Mhm.
And I think it's kind of one of my first thoughts as I was watching your demo was, how could this be adapted to other things, to help people like her, kind of both professionally and in her personal life.
Mhm.
But it was very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Stephen, Gary, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I'll
Sure.
throw out a couple questions. Just looking at it from being a manager perspective, were there any requirements? I did notice you had a timer to capture. I'm assuming that was time
Mhm.
time worked. Were there any performance metrics like geolocation type of data that's being captured so that you could manage the productivity of employees?
So the issue that we ran into that was discovered more towards the latter end of the project was that a lot of those I guess managerial, how to explain, there's a lot of things within their app that needed to be specified by IDs, and which would help managers to keep track of their employees by employee. And I'm trying to, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I noticed that when we were doing, it was hard to, okay. I think I understand your question. I'm trying to find the right way to answer it. 'cause I think I-
So like, for example, like the timer, if you spent 30 minutes on a work
Mhm.
order, but I look back at your historical data, you were actually there for half a day and worked for 30 minutes, I'd kind of question what's happening.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if we ever got to that point of discussion
Gotcha.
about that. Actually, I do. Okay. Now I understand that question
Yeah.
better. I thought what you're asking, because I thought what you're asking was a kind of a different question, because we discovered that in order to get this feature fully implemented and integrated into their software, like the way they wanted it to be done, we would kind of need to create an app from the ground up within the company, like create a whole specific team to basically reset, like create another version of the app with the voice implementation as a part of it, because there's a lot of things with like accessing boards, and each board has a maintenance board, and like an update board. There's all these boards with certain IDs, and so like in order to access those boards, we would need to say red list, open up this board with this employee ID, with this work order, and then open up this task and then start the timer. So it's like a lot of like loopholes. And so what we had to do in order to get this demo presentable is just to hard code those IDs into the code in order to get. So I thought that was what you were asking, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, either from our panel or from anyone else in the audience in the meeting? I think that was a.
I was just going to say that the two previous comments from Gary and Stephen, I think, get at a really important theme, which is obviously the ability to objectify and measure outputs and inputs becomes more and more important, particularly in really complex projects like construction. It just makes the whole management task so much easier. And to the degree we're able to automate those, it is certainly a highly saleable element of any of these kind of software products that are being developed. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. I think they're really good points from Gary and Stephen.
Yeah, and piggybacking on that, kind of the other side of the coin is I think we also, as software developers, have to be careful of not doing things just because we think it'd be neat also, right? Like if it's our hobby project or side project, absolutely experiment. But if we're working for a company or we have a company, I think all our panelists were driving home that point. There really should be a reason we're doing it. Either we're bringing in more customers, we're going to increase our sales, we're going to increase our customers' ability to do their job, which will make our product more sticky. They will not want to go to a competitor because our thing is so easy to use and they're so used to it. So anyway, great job, Dallin.
Thank you. And thank you
Thank you.
guys for your guys' feedback. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we had Dallin. All right. Next up is Tyson. And well, I'll let Tyson. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you guys be. I'm going to let Tyson reveal the whole surprise on his project. So Tyson, why don't you share your screen, and you might want to tick the share sound in case there's any audio in your video.
Okay.
All
Can
right.
you hear me good?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Can you see this?
Yes.
I see Escape Room VR. I assume that's what you want us to see. Yep.
Yes. All right. So a little bit of background. So I've been super interested in puzzles, and COVID has taken a massive toll on so many people in so many different ways. And I've always enjoyed going to Comic Cons with friends, and something that they always have at Comic Cons is escape rooms. And when they shut those down, I've not been able to do one of those for a very long time. And I just picked up an Oculus Quest 2, and I was watching Kenny's thing from the spring, and he made a VR project for following the capstone in the spring. And I wanted to mess around with the VR myself, and I figured this would be a perfect thing. So with the first thing, with the VR development, the VR devices and virtual reality, a lot of people have not been able to get a device as they've been so expensive, and there have not been that many. There have been multiple companies that have come out and tried to make virtual reality devices. You've seen things from Valve as they've tried to make the Vive, and Oculus has come out, and Oculus never got a big device out until the Oculus Rift came out. And that came out back in about 2016. But even then, they were still $800 to $1,000. And you're not seeing a lot of people buy those. They were almost just as expensive as computers. So they weren't as public, as known, and you actually still had to have a computer that was strong enough to plug it in. So you were only seeing people with lots of money pick them up. But Oculus kind of changed that back in 2020. On October 13th, they released their Oculus Quest 2 device, which they are releasing, and they sold for $299. And they were practically losing money because of how good of a deal it was. And because of how many they sold, they were actually sold out by Christmas, like actually before Christmas. And they were sold out for a very long time. And they just barely came back into production and brought them back out to be resold on August 24th. And that's when I picked up my Oculus Quest 2, was when it came back into store. They released a higher gigabyte storage on them, and a lot of more people picked them up. Facebook is the owner of Oculus, and they have said that they've sold about 10 million copies of devices sold for the Oculus Quest 2. And about 8 million of those were actually sold since their reintroduction in August. So most of them have actually been sold in the last few months. So they're getting a lot of these new people picking up the Oculus Quest 2. And I wanted to look at like the puzzle genre within the Oculus Quest store. So first looking at the puzzle market outside of just VR, these are projected, these are numbers for um, the value of all sorts of puzzle games across all platforms. These do include VR, but VR is so minimal right now on the puzzle market that most of this is on consoles and websites and Steam platforms and all sorts of games and things like that. But by the projected of 2023, it will be almost double of what it was a few years ago. And this is on an average of increasing at about 18% each year. So, but the problem with the app market on the Oculus Quest store is it takes a while for someone to make one of these products, and there haven't been many people making something for the Quest store because there wasn't a high demand for it because you couldn't even buy one because they were sold out for so long. And because the puzzle genre is increasing each year, it's not actually increasing on the Oculus Quest store. And Facebook has made it for their Quest store that it's the only way to release something for the Oculus Quest 2 is to put it through their store. So you're not able to develop and put something on the store for anything else unless you want to use their store. And the process to put something on their store is a little bit more complicated than other platforms. So other people are picking, developers are picking easier platforms as like the PC VR, even though it's not as growing fast and there's not as many users. So there's a lack of variety of products on the Oculus Quest store, even though there's a wide variety of app types. There's just not many. So there's not many puzzle games currently on there, puzzle products. So for the need, because the COVID is shut down and you've not been able to go to a lot of these things in person, with the growth of puzzle and a growth of VR, and there's a complete lack of puzzle VR. There's a few on there right now, but most of them, there's like about 15 puzzle experiences on there, but most of them are inflated by 2 or 3, and a lot of them don't get touched. And because the escape rooms have been shut down, the market is definitely ready for people to make VR puzzle games. So I proposed a solution of this VR escape room stuck at work, where it's a VR escape room where you use the comfort of your own work office. You have to find a way to escape using mostly modern day objects you would find in an office. And one big problem when I was looking at this was motion sickness. So the biggest thing I wanted to mess around with was how to get around an office and eliminate the motion sickness. So I used a teleport ray movement, so you can teleport to the room and still look around. So you don't have to walk around in your actual home, but you can still get around inside of the office and inside the product. Yeah, let me pull up the demo video. Okay, can you see the new video? Okay, so there is no sound for this video, so don't expect to hear sound unless you want to hear the same song for 3 minutes straight. So the first thing, I recorded this within the software I developed in Unity, just straight on my computer. I have already exported it to my headset, but I went and refilmed this morning because the headset doesn't film higher than 640p for some reason. So I decided to film this with higher quality. So I'll just click play and kind of let this run for a second. So you have a few things within the project. So you can interact with your hands and move around and grab objects, and they all work physics-based. So you can pick up objects and throw them around, and they would interact with other objects within the room. And I have a few main puzzles within, because you're trying to open up the door to get out. So the first puzzle right here you see is a locked cabinet with a code on it. So you have to find all the numbers within the room, and you have to figure out what order they go in based on the objects within that room. So this right here is an interaction with UI. So this is actually a UI object on top of the game itself. And when you interact with this, you can open up the locked cabinet and find an object inside.
So the 4 numbers you entered were the 4 numbers you showed us. That
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
So this is just a little backward puzzle that says check in the plant. So there's certain objects within the room, like the book in this, where if you push another button, you can actually use it and shoot around. I just want to let you know this is a BB gun, so it is school approved. So
Thank you for that, Tyson.
yeah, of course.
So what are you looking for next? Okay, so you got the key out of that.
So yeah, so you find a hidden chest, and now you're like,
Uh-huh.
okay, so this is where I think I could put the key.
All right. That's a
I
coffee
was
bean.
I was filming this at my desk, so I
Right.
kept bumping into my desk while moving.
Here, why don't you talk us through what you're doing? So you picked up
Yeah,
the
so right now, after I opened the chest, I found a little picture painting that says coffee on it,
Mhm.
and a new thing popped up out of the door. So I find the coffee in the room, and when I put it on the thing and click the button, it opens the door, and that was the final puzzle.
All right.
So
So you don't use the gun for anything anymore?
no,
You took
just
that
the
one out?
the
Okay.
window. Yep.
So we've been watching Tyson's progress on this every week. He showed us a new video, and so he's changed the game around. So that was a surprise to me too. All right. Sorry, I'm gonna butt out, let you keep going.
All right. Well, that's it actually.
Okay. Very
I'm
good.
looking for questions now.
All right. All right, I'm going to open it up to the panelists first for questions.
I'll throw one out there. I have some direct experience with the motion sickness using the goggles. So what can you tell me a little more about that? What that you said teleport ray movement to help eliminate the motion sickness?
Yeah, so I had multiple options when it come to how to move within the room. There was mainly 3 options I was looking at. The first one was I'll grab one of these hand controllers for the device. There's a little joystick here, and the first option was to make that joystick just move you around, but that would make people who are very prone to motion sickness get super sick as you're moving within the world but not in the real world. So the second option was the teleport ray, which was what I went with. So when you push the joystick forward, it now shows a little blue line, and it puts a circle on the ground and shows you where you can move to. And when you let go, it just teleports you there. It does a little black flicker so it doesn't hurt your eyes. And then you appear in that area. And then you can now look around where you are. And the third option was just making the room small enough where you can reach everything without moving. But I didn't end up going with that one because of all the things I wanted to put within the room.
Right.
So.
Okay. Nice. I liked it. It's very creative.
So I think there's an emerging cliche in a lot of business. I think Wayne Gretzky was actually one that started saying this, but you want to skate to where the puck is going to be, not to where the puck is.
Mhm.
And when I see something like this, it reminds me of that. And most cliches become cliches because they're true. And I think that what you're exploring here is an era where there's going to be massive, explosive growth in this whole kind of VR world. And I think learning the tools and learning the sort of development environment positions you extremely well. once you have that, obviously the sky's the limit based on your creativity. And I don't know what these APIs look like. I have no idea what the tools look like. But the one thing that occurred to me in this is, to the degree you could start to create collaboration across multiple parties in whether that's a puzzle, whether that's a business application, it doesn't matter. But the more you're able to sort of create collaboration in this kind of universe, it seems to me the higher the utility goes. And that's not a linear function. That's a logarithmic function. The more nodes you're able to plug into that network, the utility of it expands dramatically on a nonlinear basis. So again, I think it's super cool what you're doing. And to the degree that you're able to start to think in terms of where the puck is going, not to where the puck is, I think that the opportunity here is enormous, obviously. And it's really, really cool what you've done here.
Yeah, I can answer a little, John. The programming world of VR, it's still a little bit of the Wild West. Like it's,
For sure.
yeah. So, and I mean, what I mean to say is, Tyson, he had to do some serious efforts. Like, there's business apps we can throw together nowadays in an afternoon, and they look like incredible. You know what I mean? Like you brought up with Salesforce, I could throw something together in 8 hours that would have taken us 12 to 18 months back in 2003. Because
that's because it took 12 to 18 years to build the platform out. And this is obviously a very, very massive platform.
So to what I'm trying to do is, to Tyson's credit, the little bit of programming experience I've had with VR is we're still in like 2003, 2005. There's libraries and there's widgets and stuff, but man, you still really have to know what you're doing. And so
please do not misinterpret what I'm saying. I think
no, absolutely. No, not at all. I'm just, exactly. No, I know exactly what you're saying. So.
I'm actually interested to know, like, what's next for this game. Are you going to publish it on the Facebook Oculus store?
So I would really like to, but one thing with it that I'm worried about, I talked with Jacobson about this a little bit. First thing, I do have a couple more things I do need to fix. The first one is all of the art you see and the 3D objects you see in the world, I did not create. So I was just using free assets I found online, and I do have the right to use those unless I publish them. So I would need to get rights to those or make my own. So that's the first problem. The second problem is I'm really worried on the platform they have this, if I decide to put it on there for any sort of profit, the company has a 2-hour refund policy. So if you play the product for less than 2 hours, you can refund it, no questions asked. And as you see, that was a 3-minute video. Like most people I had when they were testing it, they beat it in about 15 minutes. So they could easily just play it, refund it, and be done. But I would really like to keep going with it.
Sure, that sounds like a risk. There's maybe some things you could do to mitigate that.
Yeah.
Having multiple levels, multiple boards, maybe even ever increasing difficulty, right? Do the simple room first and then a more complex room, etc. I guess the other question is, it is a little bit of a risk to go onto a platform like Oculus. One of the reasons that they're so tight about getting apps on there is that they own they basically own those customers, right? So they're giving you access to their customer base. Is there opportunity to, I don't know what's available from a Steam perspective, like an open PC kind of VR, but maybe that's an opportunity to publish there. And so be interested to know what you think about that. And then the last piece of comment there is, like, even if it wasn't being published as a VR headset game, there could, is there a way to publish it? I heard you say you built it in Unity. Is there a way to publish it as just a regular PC game where you could use your keyboard and mouse to do the same types of things, where you could potentially get some advantage off of the multiple platforms, right? Even if you did publish it in Facebook, or you could publish it in Steam and have people use PC instead of as a headset. I think there's a couple of different ways you go there. Any thoughts about that?
I actually hadn't thought about the non-VR, putting it like as a keyboard and mouse play as well. I've actually seen that in a few products that are on Oculus right now, and that would definitely work with like a Steam push too, because Steam is super big for keyboard and mouse, but it's super low for the VR games right now.
Sure, that might be a way to sort of get some traction, some users playing, this type of game. And then, as if the projections are right and people will be using more and more VR headsets, I mean, obviously you still need somebody to come out with one that works with the Steam platform, but kind of positioning yourselves to take advantage of the rise of that exponential curve potentially. It's interesting. To John's point, what about multiplayer? Like, have you thought about having multiple users in the same room? That's my understanding is that's one of the fun parts about escape rooms, is that everybody gets to collaborate and just have discussions about what to do.
Yeah.
next.
So one thing I looked at when I first started this, I really like doing the multiplayer thing, but a lot of times when you want to do a multiplayer with the VR headset, you want to do it with your friends and family, and you don't have more than one VR headset. So I've looked at ways of incorporating ways where one player could play on their phone or like a tablet or a computer, and the other one could be within the headset, and they could play together. And then you can like just switch off and stuff. But I have looked at online stuff, but it was too much to put in for just this semester.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Yeah. Phone as a multiplayer game, I will attest to that. I know some of my friends get together and there's various games you can play where the TV is the player board and everybody uses their phone as the controller. That can be a pretty fun collaborative experience. So something to think about. Cool. Great job.
Thank you.
Tyson, one other area you may want to just read about a little bit, if you haven't. I don't know if you followed this whole legal proceeding between Apple and Epic over the fate of. Okay, so there was actually just this week there was a decision that was handed down by a federal appeals court. It didn't particularly side with Apple, but basically it means the status quo is going to be in place for the next foreseeable future, the next few years at least. Any attempts at really reforming the app stores is not going to be short. So the distribution model that we're stuck with right now it's going to stay in place, I guess is my point. It's certainly an area that you ought to be aware of and continue to read about and follow, because it has huge implications to your business here.
I will definitely look back into that. I was watching that a few months ago when it was all picking up.
Yeah, like I said, there was a decision just this week. So there's a lot of pertinent news out there right now.
Okay.
Very good. Gary, did you have anything?
Nothing else to add. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been just tickled with all the work that Tyson's been doing on this. I think that VR experience, like I'm one of the ones who got theirs for Christmas last year, and putting it on, I was just amazed. It's like, unless you experience it, it's really hard to just communicate to someone what it feels like to be in this virtual environment. That said, I am still one of those who get motion sickness pretty easily. And I do understand you can build up a tolerance. And so I'm not bullish or bearish yet on VR. I'm bullish because I think it is amazing. It's such an amazing experience. I'm a little potentially bearish just because I don't know how we get most of us humans beyond that point where we can't spend, like I can't spend more than an hour in VR. And one time I did, there was like this Spider-Man game where I was Spider-Man shooting webs and just running through the city. and I almost threw up. Like it, I couldn't stop because it was so amazing. Like my body felt like I was in flight. And when I would hit a building, I physically would jerk. Like it was fooling my senses to that extent. And so I don't know. Maybe it's just in time technology will make the frame rate so close to reality that we won't notice the difference. I don't know. I don't know what happens, or maybe it's augmented reality more than virtual reality that takes over. But there is something here, right? There's a there, as John Spencer would sometimes say. There's something there. Okay, Tyson, thank you. Very good. Woo!
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Alexander. And by the way, awesome. Kuna's here too. Kuna, you were giving me a little bit of a heart attack. I was afraid you weren't going to show.
Wait,
Yes.
so, but I have to say this before we continue. So I am in Singapore right now.
Oh,
And so my plan, I was all prepared for the meeting. And then when you texted me, I realized that I was gauging the time on Texas time, which is 2 hours.
oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
thank you for texting, or I would have been not here. So
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. A lot of us are in different time zones. So awesome. Okay. Looking forward to yours, Kuna. But first, we've got Alexander. So without any further ado, take it away.
Screen share. All right, can everybody see? Am I coming through clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. First off, I just want to shout out Dallin and Tyson. You guys did great. I'm excited to see what Kuna has. And thanks to everybody else who's here. My name is Alex Payne, for those of you who don't know me. And before transferring to SVU, I was originally studying IT with an emphasis in forensics and security over at Utah Valley University. And so making the transition to computer science and coming in my capstone project, I knew that I wanted to do something that was at least somewhat security based. And what better than a password manager? Because every day we use passwords. We as human beings are using passwords. We have tons of accounts. You know, we're using passwords for our bank accounts, our emails. Us students are using Canvas. Who knows, a Pizza Hut rewards app, maybe. I don't know. There's passwords for everything. This study showed that the average American has 27 online accounts. I think that's a bit of a low ball, but that's a lot of passwords for anyone to remember. And the biggest problem with passwords is that I think there's a lack of password hygiene that a lot of people have. And so when I talk about password hygiene, I'm talking about a few things. The first is the strength of a password. I think a lot of people have weak passwords. A strong password is going to have at least 12 characters. And those characters are going to be a mix of lowercase and uppercase letters, numbers, and special characters. That prevents brute force attacks, but having a long list of passwords that's a big combination of all those different kinds of characters can be hard to keep track of. The other problem is that a lot of people use the same password across multiple accounts. Now, what that does, it leads you to be vulnerable to password or to credential stuffing. And what credential stuffing is when there's a breach on one account. Let's say my XYZ homework account is breached. Attacker gains those credentials. He can match those credentials across numerous sites. And so if you're using the same password, that leaves your other accounts vulnerable. And then the last thing is people aren't updating their passwords enough. Right? We should be keeping these passwords fresh. We should be updating them every few months. And so the idea of a password manager, which isn't new, seems like a brilliant idea, kind of like a virtual vault. To put all your passwords in one place, you can keep them unique. And when you don't have to memorize all these different combinations, you can just go in and grab it when you need it. But this FICO study shows that less than a quarter of Americans even use a password manager, which kind of blows my mind and brings me to the market. I think this market is really interesting because it's a concentrated market. And what that means is there's just a few big players that kind of control the market and have their target audiences, kind of like DashPass or Dashlane and LastPass. A couple I didn't put on here are like Bitwarden or Keeper. And so that can be a tough market to get into, but I think the disconnect that we have is a lot of people just don't know they need a password manager. A lot of people aren't educated A lot of people aren't as tech savvy as we just kind of expect everyone to be. And so I think that in the market, there's a lot of opportunity to take these password managers that work and then kind of work to educate people and expand that market and take advantage of the people that just don't know they need a password manager. And so we have Granite Mountain, and the key to Granite Mountain is simplicity, right? Another reason people don't use password managers a lot is because they're overwhelmed. We have these password managers that are rich or feature rich. Their GUI is really intensive. And for people who aren't super tech savvy, that might not bother a lot of us, but people who aren't super tech savvy see that and they're turned off by it. They're like, no, I don't know what's going on. It's just too much for them. And so Granite Mountain is all about keeping it simple. And it's a locally hosted password manager. I'll get into why I chose to do locally hosted. But one of the features for its security is that because it's locally hosted, we create a database locally on the machine when you run the application. And that database file is on the machine. So to protect that, all the data in that database file is encrypted using Fernet encryption, which is a symmetric encryption method. And so I went with a locally hosted password manager, mainly because of this quote right here. No technology that's connected to the internet is unhackable. Cloud is the future. We know that. We know now is the future, and everything is on the cloud. And right now, things are secure. Things are safe, generally speaking, but nothing is 100% secure. We can see that in the past few years, these major companies have reported vulnerabilities. In 2015, LastPass actually had emails and password reminders stolen. And so while none of that resulted in a serious data loss, it showed that it's still, once you put your credentials out there, you put your data out there, you're saying, hey, here it is, people can come and get it, you're in people on an attack. And yes, it is secure right now, but the hackers aren't sleeping, right? Or they're trying to, evolve as well and get into our data. So I will hop into the demo and kind of talk through the video I have right here. Okay, let's see. Can everybody see that? Sweet. Okay, so it's about what, 4 minutes? I'll just talk through it as we go, showing all the features. So a user installs the application, and this is the first screen they see. It'll prompt them to enter a username and a master password. And so this is the one password that you will need to get into your vault, and it initializes the database. And so let's say we enter in the wrong password, it'll flag us for that. We want to make sure our users are entering in the right information. Same thing with the usernames, that they're not confused when they're entering in. And so this is an important screen because it's locally hosted. We need a way to reset the accounts. So this will pop up on their screen, and they'll need to save this key somewhere. For the purposes of the demo, I put it in the notepad just to make it look easy, but this key will be crucial in case they ever do forget their master password. And so you're able to copy that and save that wherever you need it. And so this is our application. And so I'm going to actually back out real quick in the demo, open it back up, and show the reset account function. So let's say I log in, I forgot my password. One thing I didn't show is that I forgot to do this. Let me pause it actually. If we had added data to the vault and reset our password, the data wouldn't be affected. I forgot to show that in the demo, but I can assure you that what this does is it takes you back to the create a user screen, and so that it will just update the data in that table, in that SQL table. So we'll use test credentials, and we'll get a new key. And then we have our app, and I'm going to back out one more time just to show you guys that we can log in. So here we'll use just the test credentials. Oops, wrong password. That's okay. We'll just enter in the right one this time. And so you'll see we have two buttons. We have an add record button and a suggest password button. It's really simple setup. And so we'll add a record. We want to add the website or application we're associating these credentials with, our username, and our password. And so this populates the data into a database, and all of that is encrypted, but it will show up in plain text for you. This is your vault. you've entered in, you've used your key, your password to get into this vault. These are your credentials. And so now let's say we want to enter a new password and we don't know how to make a strong password. So we have our suggest password function, which will generate a random password that's 12 characters and a mixture of all those different characters. It's totally random and unique. So we copy that password. And then that password populates. And then we can copy the password. I'll use the notepad to demonstrate this as well, but you could copy it into your browser or your application. We also have the ability to update passwords, which I mentioned was important. So you click the update password button, you make it whatever you want, and you're able to update your password. And then of course, the last function we have to delete records. If you have a lot of passwords in there and you need to delete one for whatever, we get a warning box. Say we don't want to delete it, that's fine. Say we do want to delete it, we get rid of it. And so that is Granite Mountain in its essence. The last thing I want to show in the demo is if someone was able to get remote access or physical access to your computer, they could potentially get the database file. Maybe they don't have your password. And so if they were to get your database file and put it in a SQLite viewer, we'll see that things are still encrypted. So this is our master password table, our recovery key, and the vault, where everything is encrypted, hashed, and salted. So that is my presentation. I will now be open to questions.
Very good.
Yeah.
And just a note to the panelists and everyone, students are allowed to, quote, reinvent the wheel, because my thought is when you reinvent the wheel, you learn a lot about wheels, right? So, but I think Alexander also made a good point of why his password manager is different from the current ones and where it could fit. So anyway, open up to questions.
I'll start. This is Gary. Love the project. It was great. I have a question for you about user experience with your app. What thoughts or ideas did you have around the user experience?
Well, I just wanted it to be really straightforward. I think of my mother-in-law a lot of times when I'm on technology, who just, she's very sweet, and I feel like she calls and texts a lot to get simple help with her questions. So I just wanted it, you could see the buttons where this button does this. This is what it does. I just wanted it to be really simple, really smooth. I didn't want anything to be overwhelming.
Who else is tech support for their family?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That was my one question.
Thank you.
I actually had a thought, Gary, from just the opposite direction. And I've wondered if there's a long game here. And I mean, clearly there is a need. I mean, it's one of these things that everybody feels the pain, right?
Mhm.
And I've wondered if the long game isn't trying to introduce this into things like elementary schools and getting children using these kinds of things acclimated at a very young age and sort of growing the market from that direction, as opposed to your mother-in-law, because I'm probably much closer to your mother-in-law. And sometimes I think that's a much steeper mountain to climb. That said, clearly I feel the pain. I get it. I go crazy trying to manage 12 different passwords and whatnot. But children adapt to these things so easily. And I don't know that they feel the pain yet, but they will very soon. And if you have a product that they're adapting early on, I just wonder, it's certainly not an answer, it's a thought.
I think that's a great thought.
There's
Actually,
not
I'd never
entrance.
considered that.
Way upstream.
Right. Thank you for that.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I had similar thoughts about just what was, again, this is sort of a similar question I think I asked earlier, but was what's next for this? If you had more time and you were going to keep working on this, what would you do next?
Well, what I would do next, I would probably have people test it, try to break it, and see where we can improve with what it is. Because really, I'm the only one who's ever used it. I know of like one little bug, but I'm sure that it's breakable. It's definitely not perfect by any means. So I think it would be putting it in test environments where people can break it, and probably also changing the design up a little bit. That was a last minute thing.
Yeah. To jump on with Stephen, I'll let you keep going, Stephen, in a second. But yeah, I think what we're asking is there a roadmap? I know you want to keep it simple. Are there other features that you think you could add in the future and would be valuable, but still in line with your goal of keeping it simple?
Right. There aren't any that come to my mind off the top of my head. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there is room. There is room for more features. I'm not great at English, obviously. I'm sure there's room for more features. Yeah, I can't think of one that pops off the top of my head. There isn't a roadmap.
Yeah, what about, I wonder just out loud, would this be an opportunity for like an open source project too? Like,
Oh,
is that
definitely.
something that, yeah, that you could open source and get collaborators on and sort of, I think there's, one of the downsides of using one of the sort of more store-bought versions like LastPass or one of those other ones is you just nobody really has any oversight into like how it's actually being done. But if you had an open sourced version of this, I think people could get behind it because it's easy to see how it works, right?
Right.
Obviously there's a risk there, and that if it's easy to see how it works, people could poke holes in it. But actually that risk is actually a benefit in the long term, because somebody will find a hole in it, and then that the community could work to patch that hole and make it even stronger product overall. So yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
I had a couple thoughts also. So one feature might be, so this is local to your computer, but as we all know that computers aren't eternal, right? They break down after about 3 or 4 years. Maybe in keeping with simplicity, an easy way to move this to a new computer securely. And that's my question for you. I know it's in SQLite. Is it just a matter of copying all the files and moving them over, or is there something, are you using something internal on the computer itself, like the MAC address, to create uniqueness? Or do you know what I'm saying? Is there anything? Yeah.
So in theory, yes, you could just copy and put it on your machine if you wanted to move to a new machine. I think that in terms of new features, there could be something to make that a little more secure, to make sure that no one can just plug into your laptop and move all your information over. But right now, that's where it's at. Yeah.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm just throwing more ideas out.
Yeah, you're good.
So if sometimes, especially in a market where you have a bunch of big players and they're all generalists, right? Like LastPass is good for a lot of different things and situations. Sometimes trying to be everything to everyone in that kind of market, you're not going to be successful. But if you find a little niche where LastPass is not the best, and I'm just thinking, so here's one thing in particular, and I'm not a security expert. You guys all know that my passion is with application development and startups. But one thing that I always run across is even when we have a process running on a server, like some Python scripts that run every hour or something to scrape, often we need to store passwords or keys, private keys, and we don't store them in code. We'll store them in environment variables. But when someone leaves the company, before they go, they can log into AWS and say we're doing it on there. And if I've made them an administrator, they can go through and copy these secret keys and write them down. And then maybe they can create an app afterwards using the secret key if we haven't changed it. And we usually, I think part of security is when you have someone leave, you need to generate new, what do they call them? Derived keys, right? We're always going to use derived keys. So the last key is no longer valid, but we have to update the system. I'm wondering if your little product, and I mean little in a good sense, like it's not trying to do everything. It's not diminishing it. But if there were a way to, I don't know how to like generate derived keys and push one button and everything updates. And then there's a way for me to send this local password manager, zip it up and send it to all the admins who still work for us. They can look at these derived keys, update all the AWS systems. And in case our employee that we fired goes rogue, they can't do anything because yeah. Does that make sense? And to me, I'm sorry, I'll say one more thing and then I'll shut up. The problem potentially with LastPass is that rogue employee, if they still have a password to LastPass and they log in, maybe they're able to grab a bunch of keys before, like that has to be on your list on the outboarding process when someone leaves. But if you save that to the end, or maybe someone forgets, it's a huge human, as Gary calls it, it's not a tech problem, it's a human problem. And but if there's a way that we could quickly invalidate all the derived keys, derive new ones, quickly send those out securely to the other administrators, and we update the systems, then yeah. So, all right, thoughts on that, Alexander? I'm done talking.
Oh no, you're good. I think that's a great thought. That's something into for sure. There's a key derivation of function in the application, so I'm sure that could be used to create some sort of way to send the keys if we needed to.
Yeah, because my whole thing I think I'm getting at is the cloud key manager or password managers. They are great for what they do, but there has to be some scenarios where that's a risk, and having a local password manager is the best option. I don't know what they are, but it just seems like there has to exist something like that. So awesome. Any other thoughts? Any other comments from anyone?
Sorry, I do have a question.
Sure. Hey, James, good to have you here.
James.
Hi. And maybe you had already mentioned this and I just zoned out. But is this something that you're thinking of doing also for like a mobile app too? Or because of wanting to keep it on the local device, do you want to just keep it on the computer?
I actually didn't mention that, but that's a good question because I considered that with the way that, not a lot of people, how do I say this? Phones are more common than computers and laptops. And so I think that there would definitely be benefit into creating something similar that works on a mobile device with as often as people are using their phones and using accounts on their phone. There's not anything I've done with that yet. I just didn't have the time or the scope to do that. But I think there's definitely benefit to look into that.
That's a great observation, James. Now that you said that, I'm like, no, that probably is the way to go. Have them stored locally on your phone. And then that might be even better to press a button, regen derived keys, blast them out to everyone who is still in the administrator club. Yeah. Huh. All right.
Thanks, James.
All right. You might have a product there, Alexander. I mean, you do, but you know what I'm saying. You take it, keep taking it. Other thoughts, comments? Anyone from anyone? All right. Well, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yay, Alexander.
Great work.
All right, our last victim, guest, presenter for today is Kuna, and Kuna is a man of the world, traveling all over. I never know where he's at, but I'm glad we got it all worked out and that you made it. So I will, without any further ado, Kuna, you're on stage.
Okay, let's see. Okay, hold on, my privacy settings too.
What time of day or night is it where you're at now?
It's 2 a.m. right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but yeah, let's see.
All right.
Okay, there we go. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So hi, my name is Kuna, and it feels nice to be home, even though it's 2:30 a.m. right now. And my presentation is actually on a device I've been working on. It's just a simple device called the motion detector. So for my capstone project, I I didn't have much ideas of what I wanted to do because I was working for a company over the summer, and I've been doing a lot of data scraping for them, and I didn't want to use that same project. I created a data scraper with Python, and I just wanted to move in a different direction. And that's when one day I was sitting in my backyard, and my fiance's dad was saying, I don't know who is eating my garden. I don't know. I know some animal comes by here, but I don't have no idea what's eating. So that's when I got this idea, if I could only create this motion detector that can actually, when an animal or anything passes by, it starts recording and kind of gets the time which the animal is moving, and which is my motivation for this project. So as mentioned earlier, my purpose was to actually keep my chickens safe, because there was a time when we had 40 chickens. Somehow the numbers kept going down. We know something was eating them, but I have no idea. They wanted to install a camera, but a wildlife camera costs close to about $100 to $150. And in order to observe all the animals, we probably need to buy at least 5 to 10 cameras to install it in different places to be able to observe the whole place at least, and also to keep the garden safe. So what I did was I was just exploring a little bit with Python library, and I realized that they actually have a CV library, and that you can actually create a motion detector using your PC's camera. So I thought, hey, I think I'm going to explore it. So it took me some time with the learning curve and everything, because I've not done a project like this. But so when I started playing around, at least in my personal opinion, it was pretty disastrous, but the learning curve was pretty amazing. So what happened is the camera turned on, but nothing happened. So, and my final goal was actually have this square box that actually detects on the ports, but I didn't know how to do it. So after a few research and everything, I realized that I needed to create multiple frames of a picture. So I guess that's how I understood how a motion detector works, at least. So I need a frame that has nothing, and then a blurred picture, and then I have to change it into a black and white picture so that it can differentiate the difference between each frame. So this is the first image I came up with. I know this is a little early before the demonstration, but I just wanted to explain how this thing works. So this is the first frame that I took Python to do. But for some reason, I think the current project I have right now is to actually detect an empty frame, and if anything walks in, it does record it. And this is the second frame I was talking about, where I created this, I made a gray image called Blasting Blur to actually improve the accuracy, because as you can see, I was testing it in my living room and it started picking up everything. Like it started picking up a pillow, it started picking up TV, which is pretty stationary. And then to actually filter the image to remove all other distractions, and to finally detect this, that there's a face in front of the camera, which is my goal. So this is my code, just a guide. I was only about a few lines, but this is my demonstration I have for you. So I did use, as you can see, I used a lot of Python library, and I didn't come up with most of the codes. I mean, I typed it, but I just used that library and kind of discovered what else I can do with it. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. There we go. So this is the video I have right now. So this, I was testing it out in my living room, and as you can see, it detects the pillows, and now I'm walking by, and it's actually kind of like recording me. But what's happening right now is it's still recording. Like it's showing that there's actually something in that frame. So I tried testing it again. It does record me, but the problem is the start frame has to be empty, I guess, which is the bug that I have in this program right now. And I was just pretending to be a bird here, so I'm sorry for that you have to see this, but yeah. And so as you can see, just a Q button will stop the whole product itself. And so and then what happens is I could also test out and it also gives me a time frame right here, the time that the movement happened. So right now I was walking from, for a couple of minutes, and it did record it. The goal was actually to, like, let's say I move away from the frame, it was supposed to stop the recording. And then when I walk again, it was to record again. But I think that's the bug I have right now that I'm working on still. The fact that I need a clean frame, like the whole, the area has to be, should not have any other distractions, so that it would start as a fresh frame. Yeah, so the challenges I face here, at least, is the logic of the program. As mentioned earlier, my biggest challenge was how I was going to do it, because I knew I could use the library, but I did not know that I could come up with mathematical calculations, like per se, how much a square is supposed to be, or should I compare with other image. I didn't know any of this knowledge, so I had to do a bit of research on that. So after so many speed bumps, that's when it occurred to me that, okay, so I need a fresh frame, and then I need to filter that frame, and then I need to compare this frame. And using a while loop of comparing all these pages, that's when I could actually show that, okay, now there's something in that screen. And the second challenge is, as mentioned earlier, green box to detect the object only. So when I actually did a test on a blank wall and something walks by, it detects. But the problem is it doesn't detect my face. It detects like a logo on my shirt, or those kind of things. And my final product was actually to use a tiny server like a Raspberry Pi, and probably using any kind of webcam, and then to kind of run it through there, have a SD card in it that can actually record those, like store the information that is recorded. Right now, I'm trying to, like, I do have Raspberry Pi and everything, but that's what I'm working towards eventually, to have a full hardware that actually runs. Yeah, so as mentioned, that will be my future improvements. I've been still working on the green box. I've been doing a lot of calculations and trying to change different filters, but the green box either disappears, or it just, as mentioned, just keeps capturing different images. And also, instead of the time instead of just giving me the timestamp, I was trying to get an interactive graph itself where it just gives me a graph of, okay, so this at this time the movement happens, and then there's a gap, and then this time the movement happens, so that I can know when the deers are coming in my area or when my animals are more vulnerable, and those or even what my dogs are doing. So that's I guess that's my goal of the project. But I'm still working on it. I know I'm close to finishing a full prototype, but yeah. So thank you for listening, and any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kuna. All right, let me open up the panel. First of all, though, so Kuna, have you thought, so let me see if I understand the problem. Sorry, my debugging brain turned on before I could move it over.
Sure.
So the problem right now is you have too many, you want it to not have any green boxes, and then when a green box appears, you want to start the camera. But right now you turn it on and there's already 3 green boxes, and then you walk through and you're a 4th and a 5th box. Is that the problem?
Yeah, but to polish up a little bit, so it's exactly what you are, but just one correction though. So as long as it's in a distracted environment, for let's say it's not a plain white wall,
Yeah,
then it captures multiple things.
right.
For like as you saw in the start in
Yeah.
my living room.
So
Yeah.
my question is, could you put an initializing routine where it turns on for like 1 minute and it counts how many green boxes there are, and that's its base state? And so you save that somewhere, and then anytime the amount of green boxes, let's say it starts out, whatever environment you're in, let's say there's 3 green boxes, and then you program it whenever the amount of boxes is greater than 3, and you grab that 3 from your initializing state, then you turn it on. And whenever the amount of boxes goes below or equal to back to 3 in this case, then it turns it off. Would that work?
I mean, I could try it.
Okay.
I think like right now what I did was I think before I went in that direction, but I already had a working camera, so I didn't want to damage or change that. But I did clone it in a different repository, and as I was working on it, I realized that, as mentioned, when I was trying to do that the initialization, the green box doesn't turn up. So when I walk by, it's recording and everything, but I don't have the green box. So
okay.
Yeah, so that's a challenge I guess I've been going through. So I know, okay, so right now I let the box be as it is, but as I said, the flaw with this program is if I start off with the whole plain wall, and when something goes in, it gives me the results that I want.
Right.
But it's just very distracted. As I said, this initial part is very distracted. And I'm planning to put it in a very jungle area. And when I use my MacBook, it does detect like trees and moving leaves. And and I don't want that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll send it back to our panelists, and do as I say, not as I do. I know all of us engineers on the call are trying to debug this problem right now for Kuna, because that's what we do and that's how our brains operate. Including myself, and I'm speaking to myself, let's compartmentalize, let's turn that part off, and let's do with the rest of what we've been doing with everyone else. So, all right, opening it up to the panel.
All right, I'll
So
throw a
Kenny,
question.
oops,
Go ahead,
sorry.
John.
When
Go ahead.
I first saw this, do you remember a product called Eagle View that we used at STR Helper?
Yes. Yep.
Kenny, this would be taking you in a wildly different direction. But it just jumped out at me. A problem that cities have all over the place is unpermitted development. People decide, gee, I'm going to add a couple of bedrooms onto my house, and they don't pull a permit, they just go do it. And cities have a nearly impossible time detecting this. To the point that I know in Austin, they actually have 2 full-time people that all they do is drive up and down streets looking for dumpsters. This is how they detect this. And that's how unsophisticated it is. This company called Eagle View came along and has aerial photographs, and they fly over the city every 6 months or whatever and do aerial photographs of the entire city. When I saw what you were doing, I thought, God, is there a way to take what you're doing and basically layer one on top of the other and recognize just a change, not necessarily motion, but a change that says, before the footprint looked like this and now it looks different, so that I can automatically detect changes from the aerial photo. I'm telling you, this is a multi-million dollar business that is waiting to happen. And when I saw what you were doing, and by the way, I thought it's fascinating. I live on a ranch. I get exactly what you're talking about with animals and other things. I get it. But my mind went totally the opposite direction, back to this problem that we recognized years ago. And when I saw what you're doing, I thought, wow, is there an opportunity to take this same idea and sort of solve this other totally unrelated problem. Anyway, that's how my brain works, not very well.
You give me a lot to think about, so thank you.
Who was next? Someone else was going to talk?
I'll throw one out there. So how are you planning this would connect back? Is it going to be a remote device, cellular connection, or your local Wi-Fi for home use? What were you thinking?
So I was gonna test it out with my home Wi-Fi first. I do have, thing is, it didn't make sense to me at the start, but I think given distance I have from a working router to where I was going to place it, it does work. Let's say I was exploring the options as well. I was thinking, so how far can I actually push Raspberry Pi? Like, can I actually put like a data SIM card in there, or connect it with something that keeps giving it data or stuff? But to answer your question, like right now, I was going to connect it to a Wi-Fi connection that emits from my house. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. You definitely can hook a Raspberry Pi up to Wi-Fi, and I'm pretty sure, 99.9% sure, that you can get a SIM card to put in one too. So that'll be definitely both cool options. I think this space is huge. Like John was saying, we use it. We've used it in the past where we actually used image recognition to identify the features in a property and then use that to improve the valuation in a property. So we could, there's a huge opportunity in image recognition and the technology itself. And so keep going in that space if you like it, if you find it fun and interesting, because there's lots of opportunity there. As for your particular use case, it's interesting. I have a hobby pack of Raspberry Pi myself because I wanted to just have some motion sensors around my property. We have like a long driveway, and it's hard to tell. You know, it's not very well lit down there. Or that's something I probably could solve in another way. But it'd be nice to know if somebody's coming up the driveway. So just having like a motion sensing kind of thing that tells me where motion is around the property is definitely an opportunity. And I think so. I guess I'm saying is your product probably has a wider application than you're initially envisioning, which is great to start with a niche, but it's also great to think, where else could I go with this? You know, if I have a small, fairly inexpensive motion sensing device that could be Internet of Things, connected to Wi-Fi or cell signal or both, you know, I think there's definitely some opportunity there for a product like that, something that's fairly inexpensive. I mean, I could go out and buy, there are products on the market right now, but I think they're fairly expensive for what they do. So there's definitely an opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think it, Oh, uh-huh.
Building on what Stephen was just saying there, I think that also thinking in terms like we were talking earlier in terms of platforms and applications, I just wonder if you couldn't build out a platform that has this sort of amalgamation of services and then surface APIs that allow individual entrepreneurs to then say, okay, here's the application, whether that's someone, as you said that, I think, well, my front gate is a mile from my house. Having something that just says, buzzes and says, hey, someone just came through the gate. That's pretty useful. A very, very simple application. But I just wonder if you couldn't build the platform out and then have, sorry, speaking of animals, have applications that are built on top of your platform as well.
Yeah, I love that idea, John, because I thought of another plug-in module to Kuna's application that we've decided that he's going to build, which is at some point, what if you could not just detect the motion, but through AI detect what kind of animal it is, and then have a library of sounds that then whatever is the natural predator for that little pest, it'll play like a screeching hawk or an angry cat or something like that, that just makes your little varmint like scurry away.
I would definitely love to explore that. I love that idea. Thank you. That was amazing. Yeah. I think it'd be fun to explore that. I think it's really funny.
Yeah, although you might start getting sick of the menagerie of animals, the virtual animals in your backyard howling and growling and screeching all night.
Yeah, but I mean, like what Stefan said, I mean, well, I guess that's why I'm thankful for whoever's here and all the advice you gave, because I had a lot of doubts when I was doing this project, I guess, which is why I wasn't able to think further ahead. I just wanted a working product, but I feel now that I have like all these ideas of how I can, I guess, expand it even more. Like now, like thinking about Porch Pirates and, Stefan saying that I can put a SIM card in there. I think that's going to be what I'm going to try first, without even connecting the Wi-Fi first. I think I might get a SIM card and try to see if it can actually detect that far. And explore that. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, with Porch Pirates, you could have a voice say, "This is your conscience. Are you sure you want to do?" Or "This is God. Don't steal that package."
I see. Thank you.
Any other comments from the panel or from the rest of the gallery? All right, well, good job, Kuna. Yay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the presentations. That was so much fun. I loved it. Thank you to our panelists for coming. We appreciate the time that you took out of your day, your busy schedule to help out. And I really appreciate it at a personal level. We're trying to build a great computer science department here at SVU. And I really hope that this demo days is one of the big attractions, one of the center stone, well, the capstone of, if you will, of your education here. And I feel like that everyone, the four presenters we had here, I think you are all great representatives of what you can become with a with an education and exposure to computer science, and people like me and John. I don't know, Gary, what was your major? Did you do computer science, or were you like me out in left field? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I was a little all over the place.
Yeah. And so, as I've said before, you don't necessarily have to major in computer science, become a programmer. But I will say this, I know that if I had, my learning curve would have been accelerated about 5x. Like what took me 5-6 years to learn on my own probably would have only taken me 1 or 2 years right out of college had I had the background that you guys are getting. And it's I've said it before, I say it in all my classes, I figure all the time. This is such an exciting time to be a programmer. My son, my middle son, who's 14, he wants out, he's interested in computer programming, but he's kind of like, are we at the end of programming? Like, am I too late to it? And I'm like, no, like, despite what everyone, Gary and I've had these conversations before, I think Stephen and I too, even since the 80s, there has been this hope in business that you could eventually have no programmers, that, business people could just drag and drop things together and they'd have a program. Or the new thing is, well, AI will build a program for us. But as Gary is often to say, like, software is not a technical problem, it's a people problem. And we've had tens of thousands of years to try to figure out how people work, and we still don't really get it. So there's no reason to believe that we're going to magically understand people and that software is just going to build itself. So this is such an exciting time, so many technologies. We could not possibly teach you everything in 4 years that is going on right now in technology. The best we can hope for is to give you the basics and then teach you how to teach yourself. And I think all 4 of you learned a lot on your own, a lot of new stuff that me or Professor Stevenson or any of your professors taught you. You had to teach yourself and get used to it, because this is welcome to the rest of your life, right? So those are my thoughts. Any parting thoughts from our panelists or our crowd?
Great work.
Jeff Swift, do you have, oh, okay. I think Dr. Swift has something to
Oh yeah,
say.
please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun to watch. We kind of kept it muted the whole time because we still have traffic coming in and out. But all 4 of those were just, it's amazing to see. I mean, you created that from nothing, and that's not something that you could have done a year or 2 or 3 ago. And that's just kind of impressive. It's impressive to me. There's not many people on campus who can do that, who can build a computer program in a semester that takes the place of in-person things. What are they called? Escape rooms and password management. I mean, those are some complicated things. So anyway, I'm just impressed. That's been a blast to see those. So, and I'm excited already to see where they go next, what you do with them.
Thank you, Dr. Swift. Anyone, Stephen, did you have something to say?
Oh, just great job, everyone. And yeah, if find your little niche and keep going in it. And if you like it, keep working in it. There's so much opportunity, like you were saying, Kenny. It's sort of unbelievable, and it's a little overwhelming. You can kind of get stuck because there's so much to do, so much opportunity to take advantage of. Part of the game here is actually figuring out what you like to do and where your niche is going to be, and what kind of value you can bring to some community of people or businesses. So yeah, I guess that's my parting words.
Thank you.
Let me,
John.
So much of what I see, of course, I see through the lens of my own children. And to your point, Kennedy, I want to address this one first. Is programming, are we at the end of the line? And that we're so far from that point that in none of our lifetimes will we see the end of the line. It's interesting to me to watch my kids and how the stuff that they work on in their professional worlds now, where, for instance, Excel, which is sort of a finance, whatever you want to call it, tool, it is really a programming platform. The idea of Excel being, oh, equals cell 1 plus cell 2 kind of thing is a joke. The sophistication of Excel now, it's its own universe of programming in and of itself. So to think, and as opposed to being at the end of the line, it seems like we're just creating, frankly, new programming opportunities over and over and over again. So I think that there's absolutely no way we're anywhere close to that. The second thing I would say is, if I could ever be of help or use to any of you, please let me know. Kenny knows how to track me down. I will tell you that my career has been far more successful in the business to business type world. Consumer applications, I'm incompetent. And if that's your interest, I'm probably not much use. I can put you in touch with people who are very good at that, but I will not be of any use to you on more of the business to business stuff. It's sort of been where my background has been. And if I can be of use, please have, Kennedy hook us up, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Absolutely, for sure. All right. Anyone else? All right. Thanks, guys. It was so much fun working with you during the semester, and thanks, panelists, for coming. And this, I count this as another success. Our second semi-annual demo days is now complete. Yay! All right. Well, I will talk to everyone later.
Thank you.
Yep, the four of you, I'll communicate through Slack or Canvas. I think, yeah, I'll have you just send me your slides. I will, once this video's finished, give me a couple weeks, but I'll go ahead and download it, cut it into pieces, put it up on YouTube. And I think this should also be great for your portfolio. So when you are going for a job and show them this, your little your important presentation. Sorry, I keep using the word little, but it's affectionate, not derogatory. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.